Hello, everyone. I'm Henry, your host for today's episode of the English Learning Podcast. I'm so glad you're here with me today because we're going to talk about something really important for your English journey. Today, we'll discuss how you can train your brain to think in English. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. How can I possibly start thinking in English? It might sound like a big challenge, especially if English is not your first language. But trust me, it's not only possible, it's a skill that can dramatically improve your language ability. When you start thinking in English, you'll notice that you speak more fluently, you understand better, and you feel more confident when using the language. It's like switching gears in your mind and making English your natural way of thinking. In this episode, we're going to break it down step by step and show you how you can start training your brain today. It's easier than you think. By the end of this episode, you'll have practical tips that you can use every day to make thinking in English a habit. So, whether you're a beginner or you've been studying English for a while, this episode will help you move one step closer to becoming a more confident English speaker. All right, let's get started. Now that we've introduced the topic, let's dive into why thinking in English is so important. You might be asking yourself, why should I train my brain to think in English? Isn't it enough just to learn words and grammar? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's break it down. First, when you start thinking in English, it helps you become more fluent. Fluent speakers don't have to stop and translate every word in their heads before they speak. Instead, they just know what to say. And this is exactly what thinking in English does for you. It lets you start thinking directly in English without the need to first translate everything from your native language. This makes speaking much quicker and more natural. Second, thinking in English reduces the time it takes to respond in conversations. If you're still translating in your head, you might find yourself hesitating while trying to find the right word or phrase. This can make conversations feel slower or less confident. But when you think in English, you'll have faster access to words, phrases, and expressions. You'll start to respond more quickly and easily, which leads to smoother and more natural conversations. Third, when you train your brain to think in English, you'll start feeling more confident in your speaking ability. Think about it. If you were able to express yourself in English as easily as you do in your own language, wouldn't you feel more confident? That's exactly what happens when you start thinking in English. You'll no longer be worried about finding the right words or making mistakes. Instead, you'll focus on sharing your ideas clearly and confidently. Finally, thinking in English helps you improve your listening skills. When your brain is used to processing English thoughts, it becomes easier to understand what others are saying. You're not just listening to words anymore. You're connecting ideas and understanding them in the context of the language. This means you'll be able to follow conversations more easily and even pick up on more subtle details in what people are saying. So, in short, thinking in English helps you speak more fluently, respond faster in conversations, build more confidence in your speaking ability, improve your listening and comprehension skills. All of this leads to one thing: better communication in English. And that's what we're all working toward, right? Now that you know why it's so important, let's move on to how we can actually train our brains to think in English. Now that we've talked about why it's important to think in English, let's take a closer look at something really interesting. the connection between language and thought. You might be wondering, what does thinking in English really mean? Does it just mean using English words in my head? Or is there something more to it? Well, here's the thing. Our thoughts are shaped by the language we use. In other words, the way we think is often influenced by the language we're using at the time. Think about it. When you're speaking in your native language, your brain automatically uses the words and phrases you're familiar with. But when you switch to a new language, like English, the way you think also changes. You begin to see the world through the lens of that language. For example, let's say you're describing a beautiful sunset. In your native language, you might have a special word or phrase to describe how the colors look or how the scene makes you feel. But in English, you may have to describe it in a different way. The English language may not have the exact same words as your native language, which can make you think about things from a new perspective. This is important because thinking in English helps you connect ideas more easily. You're not just trying to translate or find the right words. You're experiencing the world and forming your thoughts in the language itself. And when you do this, expressing yourself becomes much easier. Let me give you an example. When you're in a conversation with someone in English, and you're already thinking in English, your brain doesn't need to stop and translate. You'll naturally understand what the other person is saying, and you can respond without hesitation. You're no longer trying to convert everything from your own language to English. Instead, your brain is directly processing English thoughts and ideas. Another way to think about this connection is like a puzzle. Each language is like a different way of solving the puzzle of life. When you think in English, you start to see the pieces of the puzzle come together more smoothly. You'll start recognizing patterns in how English works, and that helps you use the language more effectively. And here's a fun fact. Research shows that people who think in the language they're speaking tend to be more fluent and better at problem solving. So, the more you think in English, the easier it will be to express yourself clearly and quickly. In short, the connection between language and thought is powerful. When you think in English, your brain becomes more flexible. You'll be able to process and share ideas faster, and you'll be much more confident when you speak. All right, we've talked about why thinking in English is important, and we've looked at how it connects to your brain and your ability to speak and understand the language. Now, let's get into the practical steps you can take to start thinking in English. The good news is that you don't need to completely change how you think overnight. You just need to make small adjustments that will help you build the habit of thinking in English. Here are some simple, practical steps you can begin with. 1. Describe things around you in English. The first step is to describe the things around you. Start by using English to talk about the objects, people, and situations in your environment. You don't have to speak out loud if you're in a place where it's not possible. You can do this in your mind. For example, if you're at home, look at an object like a book or a chair and describe it in English. You might say, "This is a green book. It's on the table. The cover is colorful, and the pages look old." You can describe anything. Your room, your clothes, the food you're eating. Just practice forming English sentences about what you see. 2. Think in English. During daily activities. Next, think in English during your daily activities. Whether you're cooking, cleaning, or commuting to work, try to think about what you're doing in English. For example, when you're cooking dinner, you can think to yourself, I need to chop the vegetables, or I'm boiling the pasta. If you're walking down the street, think about the people you see and the things around you. You could think, that person is wearing a red jacket, or the weather is a little cloudy today. These small, everyday thoughts help your brain practice using English. 3. Talk to yourself in English. Talking to yourself in English may sound a little strange, but it's actually a very effective way to get comfortable with thinking and speaking in English. The next time you're alone, try narrating what you're doing. For example, if you're getting ready in the morning, you might say, I'm brushing my teeth. I'm putting on my shoes. Now, I'm getting my keys. Even if you're not speaking to anyone, saying these things out loud in English helps your brain get used to processing thoughts in English. It's also a good way to practice new vocabulary or phrases. 4. Use English media to immerse yourself. One of the most powerful tools for thinking in English is immersion. This means surrounding yourself with English as much as possible. Watch movies, TV shows, and YouTube videos in English. Listen to podcasts, songs, or even audiobooks in English. The more you expose yourself to English, the easier it will become for your brain to start thinking in the language. Start with things you enjoy, maybe a TV show or a podcast that interests you. Listen to it without subtitles at first, and try to understand as much as you can. This constant exposure helps your brain get familiar with the flow of English, making it easier for you to think in English without even realizing it. 5. Practice with English speakers. If you want to take your thinking in English to the next level, it's really helpful to practice with other English speakers. This could be a language exchange partner, a friend who speaks English, or even joining online language communities. When you have conversations in English, it forces your brain to think quickly and respond in English. If you don't have access to a lot of English speakers, that's okay. You can still find people to practice with through language exchange apps or online forums. The key is to practice regularly, even if it's just for a few minutes a day. Use an English notebook or journal. Another great way to start thinking in English is to write down your thoughts in English. Start a small English journal or notebook. Each day, write a few sentences about what you did, what you're feeling, or anything on your mind. Writing forces you to think in English as you try to express your ideas on paper. It also helps reinforce new vocabulary and grammar structures. Don't worry if you make mistakes. The goal is to practice thinking in English, not to be perfect. As you keep writing, you'll notice that you start thinking in English more often without having to force it. So, let's quickly review the steps we've covered. 1. Describe things around you in English. 2. Think in English during daily activities. 3. Talk to yourself in English. 4th. Immerse yourself in English through media. 5. Practice with English speakers. 6. Keep an English notebook or journal. The key to all of these steps is consistency. Don't expect to start thinking in English all at once. Start small and try to make thinking in English a regular part of your day. The more you practice, the easier it will become. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. That's part of the learning process. All right, we've covered why it's important to think in English, how it connects to your brain, and practical steps you can start using today. But, let's be honest, learning to think in English is not always easy. You might face some challenges along the way, and that's totally okay. Every learner goes through these hurdles. The important thing is not to give up Let's talk about some of the common challenges you might face, and more importantly, how to overcome them. One of the biggest challenges for many learners is the fear of making mistakes. When you're trying to think in English, you might worry that you're not saying things correctly, or that people will judge you for your mistakes. The truth is, everyone makes mistakes when they're learning a new language. Mistakes are a natural part of the learning process. Think about when you were a child and learning your first language. You probably made mistakes every day, right? But those mistakes helped you improve. It's the same with English. Here's the solution. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Instead of seeing them as failures, view them as opportunities to improve. Every mistake teaches you something new, and over time, you'll notice that you make fewer mistakes and feel more confident. 2. Feeling overwhelmed. Another challenge is feeling overwhelmed. English has so many rules, exceptions, and vocabulary to learn. It can feel like there's always more to study, and that might make you feel like you'll never catch up. But remember, you don't need to learn everything all at once. Start small and focus on building a habit. The key is consistency, not perfection. Set realistic goals, like learning a few new words each week, or thinking in English for just 10 minutes a day. Take it one step at a time. 3. Switching between your native language and English. A common challenge is the tendency to switch back to your native language. When you're learning English, it's easy to fall back into your comfort zone and start thinking in your own language, especially if you don't have the words for something in English. This can slow down your progress and make it harder to build the habit of thinking in English. The solution here is simple. Keep practicing. The more you practice thinking in English, the more natural it will become. Start by thinking about simple things, like what you'll eat for breakfast or how your day is going. Gradually, as you build confidence, you'll be able to handle more complex thoughts in English without relying on your native language. 4. Limited opportunities to practice. You might also feel like you don't have enough opportunities to practice speaking English. This is a common problem, especially if you don't live in an English-speaking country or have many people around you who speak English. But don't worry. There are plenty of ways to practice English on your own. You can join online communities, use language exchange apps, or even practice speaking to yourself. And remember, listening to English media like podcasts, movies, and songs can also give you lots of opportunities to hear and absorb English. Over time, this will help you think more naturally in English. 5. Frustration with progress. Finally, it's very common to feel frustrated with your progress. Sometimes it feels like you're not improving fast enough, or you're stuck in the same place. This happens to everyone at some point, and it can be really discouraging. But here's the secret. Progress takes time, and it's often slower than we expect. The key is to stay patient and keep practicing. Celebrate your small wins, whether that's understanding a movie without subtitles or having a short conversation in English. The more you practice, the more you'll improve, even if it feels slow at times. So, let's review how to overcome these challenges. 1. Don't fear mistakes. Embrace them as learning opportunities. 2. Don't feel overwhelmed, focus on small, consistent progress. 3. Stop switching to your native language practice, thinking in English every day. Find ways to practice even if you don't have many opportunities to speak with others. Be patient with your progress, keep going, and you'll see results. Remember, Language learning is a journey, and every challenge you face is just another step toward success. If you stay consistent and positive, thinking in English will become easier, and you'll start noticing real improvements in your fluency and confidence. All right, now that you know why thinking in English is important, how to start training your brain, and how to overcome some of the challenges you might face, let's talk about how to keep practicing so that this becomes a lasting habit. The key to improving any skill is consistency. You don't need to practice for hours every day. What matters is that you practice regularly, even if it's just for a few minutes each day. Here are some tips to help you keep going and stay motivated. 1. Set small, achievable goals. The first thing you can do is set small, achievable goals. For example, you could aim to think in English for 5 minutes every day, or learn 3 new words each week. Starting small makes it easier to stay consistent. Over time, you'll notice these little goals add up and lead to big improvements. You might also set a goal like, I want to think in English while I'm having breakfast tomorrow. Or, I'll describe my surroundings in English for 10 minutes today. By setting clear, easy-to-reach goals, you'll stay motivated and feel good about your progress. To create a daily practice routine. Building a habit means doing something regularly. Try to create a daily routine where you spend some time thinking in English each day. This could be part of your morning routine or something you do before bed. The key is to make it a consistent part of your day, like brushing your teeth or having a cup of coffee. For example, every time you wake up, spend a few minutes thinking about what you'll do that day in English. You could even talk to yourself about your plans. Today, I will go to work, then I will exercise, and later, I will meet my friend for dinner. This will help you make thinking in English a habit. 3. Use language learning apps and tools. There are many great apps and tools out there that can help you practice thinking in English. Apps like Duolingo, Babbel, or Memrise can help with vocabulary. And even if you just spend a few minutes a day using them, you'll be improving your language skills without even thinking about it. Some apps also have speaking exercises, which are a great way to get your brain used to forming English sentences quickly. If you like podcasts or YouTube videos, look for ones that teach English or cover topics you're interested in. Listen to them during your daily commute, while cooking, or during any downtime. The more you expose your brain to English, the easier it will be to start thinking in English naturally. 4. Join an English-speaking community. Another great way to stay motivated is by joining an English-speaking community. This could be an online group, a language exchange partner, or even a local English club. When you have people to practice with, it can make the process more fun and less lonely. It also gives you the opportunity to use English in real conversations, which is one of the best ways to improve. Even if you can only practice a little each week, interacting with others in English helps build confidence and encourages you to keep going. 5. Track your progress and celebrate. Small wins. Finally, don't forget to track your progress and celebrate your small wins. Learning a language is a long-term process, but if you take the time to notice and appreciate your improvements, you'll feel more motivated. Maybe you're understanding movies without subtitles, or maybe you've gone an entire day without switching to your native language. These small wins are worth celebrating. Write down your achievements, take note of how much your thinking in English has improved, and remind yourself of how far you've come. This positive reinforcement will keep you motivated to continue. So, let's review the best ways to keep practicing. 1. Set small, achievable goals to stay motivated. 2. Create a daily practice routine to build the habit. 3. Use language learning apps and tools to practice regularly. 4. Join an English-speaking community to stay connected with others. 5. Track your progress and celebrate small wins along the way. Remember, consistency is key. It doesn't matter if you practice for 5 minutes or 30 minutes a day. What matters is that you're making English a regular part of your life. Keep going, stay patient, and most importantly, enjoy the process. So, to wrap things up, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about the importance of thinking in English, how it's connected to your brain and your ability to speak. And we've shared practical steps you can take to start thinking in English right now. You've also learned how to overcome common challenges and ways to stay motivated through regular practice. Here's the most important thing to remember. Thinking in English is a skill that takes time to develop. It won't happen overnight, but with consistent effort, you'll see progress. The more you practice, the easier it will become, and the more fluent you'll become in both thinking and speaking. I encourage you to take those small steps we discussed today, whether it's describing your day in English, listening to English media, or practicing with a friend, and make them part of your daily routine. Remember, the journey of learning a language is full of ups and downs, but every step forward is progress. And most importantly, don't be too hard on yourself. Celebrate your small wins and keep pushing yourself to keep going. Whether it's thinking for just 5 minutes a day or understanding a movie without subtitles, each little victory brings you closer to your goal. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the English Learning Podcast. I hope you're feeling motivated and excited to start training your brain to think in English. Keep practicing. Stay consistent. And remember, every day is a chance to get a little better. You've got this. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, take care and happy learning.